There is a kind of love that doesn't announce itself with fireworks or chaos. It feels quiet, familiar, magnetic, like coming home. When you meet this person, something in your body relaxes, like you've known them forever. Even if you've just met, you tell yourself, this is it. This is what I've been searching for. You let your guard down, not because you're reckless, but because it feels safe. But what if I told you the most dangerous love is exactly this kind? Carl Jung warned us that the unconscious has a way of pulling us toward what we haven't yet healed. We think we're choosing love freely, but often we are being drawn, almost compelled, to the people who awaken the deepest parts of our psyche, including the wounds we've spent years trying to forget. This is why the love that feels like home can sometimes destroy you. It's not the dramatic, toxic love we can easily spot. It's the quiet entanglement that bypasses our defenses because it feels fated, inevitable. You feel seen, known cracked open, and yet over time, you start to notice. You're shrinking. You're losing yourself. You're bending, softening, twisting to keep the connection alive. And still, you can't walk away. Why? Because this love carries the signature of what Jung called the complex. A psychological complex is a cluster of unconscious patterns, emotional triggers, and past experiences that silently govern our behavior. When we meet someone who activates our complex, it feels electric, like destiny. But what we're really feeling is the magnetic pull of unhealed wounds. Think of the child who craved a parent's affection but never fully received it. That child grows into an adult who unconsciously seeks partners who offer just enough love to awaken hope, but not enough to bring peace. Why? Because part of them believes, if I can make this person love me, I will finally be whole. This is why the love that feels like home can be so dangerous. It feels familiar because it mirrors your earliest emotional imprints, not because it's truly safe or nourishing. At first, everything seems perfect. You finish each other's sentences, you share the same dreams, you feel like you've known each other in another life. But slowly, cracks appear. Disappointments surface. You start to realize that the home you found isn't built on solid ground. It's built on old patterns. Jung believed that relationships are mirrors. We project our unhealed parts onto the other person, hoping they will redeem or complete us. But when both people are acting from their complexes, the relationship becomes a closed loop of unmet needs, misunderstandings, and emotional intensity. You may tell yourself, I can fix this. You remember the early days, the laughter, the connection, the passion. You believe that if you just work harder, love deeper, explain better, you can get back to that place. But you can't, because that early intensity wasn't a promise of lasting love. It was a flare signal from your unconscious, pointing to what needs to be faced, not fused with. The most dangerous love asks you to sacrifice yourself slowly, not all at once. You stop speaking up about what bothers you. You lower your standards to maintain peace. You lose sight of your dreams because you're too busy managing the other person's emotions. You become addicted to moments of closeness, even as the distance grows. And still, you stay. Why? Because leaving feels like leaving yourself. Jung taught that we don't just fall in love with another person, we fall in love with the parts of ourselves we see reflected in them. When we walk away, it's not just the person we lose, it's the story, the fantasy, the mirror. And the most dangerous mirror is the one that reflects not who you are, but who you long to become. This love pulls you in because it promises healing, completion, transcendence. But over time, it reveals its true face. A teacher, not a savior. Its purpose is not to complete you. It's to awaken you, to show you where you've been asleep, to force you to confront your patterns, your blind spots, your unmet needs. But here's the cruel paradox. The very love that awakens you is often the one you cannot keep, because it was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to break you open. The most dangerous love feels like home, but it doesn't build a home. It builds a passageway, a tunnel through which you must walk alone, carrying the lessons, the pain, the memories, and most importantly, the rediscovered parts of yourself. So if you're in love with someone who feels like home, but is slowly dismantling your sense of self, ask yourself, is this really love? Or is it the echo of a wound you've been carrying for years? Are you staying because they complete you, or because you're afraid of who you'd be without them? The dangerous love doesn't come to destroy you arbitrarily. It comes as a mirror. And what you do with that reflection determines whether you break down or break through. Jung believed that the unconscious will keep sending us the same lessons, the same patterns, the same kinds of people, until we finally face what we've avoided, until we become whole, until we stop outsourcing our healing to another human being. The love that feels like home but destroys you is not your ending, it's your awakening, but only if you have the courage to see it, name it, and walk through it. Once you realize that the love you're clinging to is not healing you, but slowly eroding you, something inside begins to shift. It's not an instant change. It's not a moment of triumphant clarity. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, a quiet voice that says, "You cannot keep living like this." Carl Jung wrote that, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is exactly what happens in dangerous love. You believe you're fated to be with this person. You believe the connection is cosmic, written in the stars, destined, but what's really happening is that your unconscious is trying to bring forward what has been buried for too long. And now, you've seen it. You've named it. You can't go back. The next step is the hardest, breaking the cycle. For many, the idea of leaving a love that feels like home is unbearable. It feels like abandoning a part of yourself. You tell yourself that walking away means failure, that you didn't try hard enough, love deep enough, explain clearly enough. You convince yourself that if you just hold on longer, they'll finally see you, understand you, meet you. But here's the truth. The person who mirrors your wounds cannot heal them. That is your work. Jungian psychology teaches that healing is an inner process, not an external rescue. The more you rely on someone else to fix your pain, the more you delay the true work of integration. Because even if they changed, even if they transformed overnight, the part of you that feels unworthy, unseen, incomplete, that part would still be there, waiting for the next trigger. So how do you break free? You start by grieving, not just the person, but the story. You grieve the fantasy you built around them, the idea that they were your missing piece, your redemption. You mourn the loss of the hope that they would complete you. This grief is deep, raw, excruciating, because it's not just about losing them, it's about confronting the places inside yourself you've abandoned. Next, you reclaim your projections. Jung believed that we project our own disowned qualities onto others. When you fall in love, especially dangerously, you often project your light onto the other person, your beauty, your creativity, your strength, your passion. You see in them what you cannot yet see in yourself. That's why it feels intoxicating. That's why it feels like coming home, because you are meeting a part of yourself through them. To reclaim your projections is to say, what I loved in you is also in me. This is not about erasing the other person or pretending the relationship didn't matter. It's about owning your part in the dynamic. Where did you abandon yourself? Where did you silence your truth? Where did you trade authenticity for attachment? Where did you dim your light to keep the peace? This stage is brutal, because it requires radical honesty. It asks you to stop blaming the other and start seeing how you co-created the dance. Not because you're at fault, but because this is where your power lives. Breaking the cycle also means facing your shadow. Jung described the shadow as the part of the psyche we repress, deny, or disown. In love, we often attract people who carry the qualities we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. If you avoid conflict, you may attract someone confrontational. If you suppress anger, you may be drawn to someone fiery. If you fear vulnerability, you may fall for someone emotionally unavailable. To heal, you must integrate these shadow aspects. You must ask, what am I learning from this dynamic? What parts of myself have I exiled? What qualities am I ready to reclaim? This is not easy work. It requires solitude, reflection, often professional support. It demands that you sit with the ache of longing without running back to the familiar arms that perpetuate your pain. And perhaps the hardest part, you must learn to stand in your own wholeness. The dangerous love leaves you hollow because it feeds on your incompleteness. When you step into your own fullness, when you meet your own needs, when you become your own home, you no longer hunger for the love that wounds. You begin to attract different connections, not the ones that spark instant fireworks or obsessive attachment, but the ones that feel calm, steady, grounding. At first, this might feel boring or underwhelming, especially if you've been conditioned to associate intensity with love. But over time, you realize peace is not boring, stability is not empty, mutual respect is not a lack of passion. Carl Jung believed that true relationships begin when two whole individuals come together, not to complete each other, but to walk side by side in growth. Anything less is not love, it's dependency. As you walk away from the dangerous love, you might feel like you're losing everything, but what you're really doing is reclaiming yourself. You are calling back the pieces you scattered in pursuit of connection. You are remembering who you were before you made someone else your mirror. And here's the paradox. When you become whole, you no longer fear love. You no longer chase it or shrink for it. You no longer tolerate the kind of home that demands your self-betrayal. You become dangerous too, not in the way that hurts others, but in the way that makes you untouchable to the patterns that once consumed you. So if you are in the middle of this journey, if you are standing at the edge of leaving or letting go or breaking free, remember, you are not failing. You are awakening. You are not walking away from love. You are walking toward it, toward the kind of love that will meet you in your wholeness, not your wounds. Because the most dangerous love may break you open, but the love you choose after will build you anew. When you finally walk away from the love that felt like home, but was quietly destroying you, the world feels empty. You expect to feel liberated, but instead you feel hollow. This is normal. You've just untangled yourself from a relationship that wasn't just about two people, it was about your identity. Carl Jung taught that when we let go of a projection, we feel like we've lost a part of ourselves. That's because, in a sense, we've withdrawn energy from the fantasy we created, the idea we clung to, the dream we built around another person. And now, standing alone, we're left facing the raw truth. Who am I when I'm no longer chasing the love that hurt me? This is the turning point. At first, it's lonely. You'll want to reach back, to call, to explain, to ask for closure. You'll romanticize the good moments, erase the bad ones, tell yourself that maybe you were too harsh, too quick, too impulsive. But if you've truly done the inner work, you'll recognize these as withdrawal symptoms. The mind craving the familiar, the heart aching for what it once believed was safety. Here's the truth. The most dangerous love was never about the other person. It was about what they awakened in you. And now that they're gone, the awakening is yours to carry. Jung believed that suffering has meaning when it leads to individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating the unconscious into the conscious self. This means that the pain you feel now isn't meaningless. It's a passage. It's a fire that burns away the illusions you once called love. It's a test. Will you go back to what's familiar, or will you step into the unknown? In this space, you begin to meet yourself. You discover the parts of you that were overshadowed in the relationship, your creativity, your passions, your quiet longings, your voice. You realize how much of your time and energy was spent managing the other person's emotions, anticipating their needs, walking on eggshells. You feel the weight lift, and though it's disorienting, it's also freeing. Slowly, you start to rebuild. You reconnect with friends you lost touch with. You revisit hobbies you abandoned. You take yourself on walks, on dates, into moments of silence. You learn how to sit with discomfort without immediately seeking distraction. You begin to trust your own rhythms, your own intuition, your own timing. This is the birth of a new kind of love, the love you give yourself. It's not selfish, it's not narcissistic, it's essential. Because only when you become a home to yourself can you enter relationships without the desperate need to be completed. Only when you know your own worth can you recognize partners who respect it. Only when you heal your own wounds can you stop bleeding on people who didn't cut you. And here's the paradox. The stronger you become, the less you need. You no longer chase intensity because you've made peace with stillness. You no longer cling to people who don't choose you because you've learned to choose yourself. You no longer confuse longing with love because you've tasted the difference between craving and connection. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This is what you want now, not a love that consumes you, but a love that transforms you. A love where both people stand as whole beings, where the connection amplifies who you already are instead of filling in your missing pieces. So, what does life look like after the dangerous love? It looks quieter at first, less dramatic, less addictive. But over time, you realize that what you once called passion was often chaos. What you once called home was often survival. What you once called love was often self-abandonment. Now you build something new. You set boundaries. Not walls, but clear lines that protect your energy. You communicate, not to control outcomes, but to express truth. You choose partners, not based on fantasy, but on shared values, mutual respect, emotional availability. You love, not because you're empty, but because you're full. And the best part? You no longer fear loss, because you know that losing someone who was never truly aligned with you is not a failure. It's a gift. You know that endings are not punishments, they are redirections. You know that love is not something you earn by suffering, it's something you share by being. So, if you are still grieving the love that felt like home but destroyed you, hold on. The pain will pass, the emptiness will fill, the lessons will integrate. And one day you will look back and thank that love. Not because it was good, but because it woke you up. It showed you where you were asleep. It pushed you toward your own becoming. It forced you to reclaim your soul. And now you are free, no longer waiting to be saved, no longer shrinking to fit, no longer explaining why you are too much or not enough. You are yourself. You are whole. You are ready for a love that feels like home without the destruction. Ready for a love that grows you, not breaks you. Ready for a love that honors your truth, your depth, your light. This is the love you've been waiting for, and it begins with you.